Let's begin with the news now. President Muhammadu Buhari says the threats by the Niger Delta Avengers to attack oil installations in the South region are unnecessary. The president's spokesman, Femi Adesina, quotes Buhari as saying all issues raised by the group were already responded to when the president met with the leadership of the Niger Delta and Ijaw National Congress at the presidential villa on Friday. According to him, issues concerning the calls for restructuring of the Federation and the inauguration of a board for the Niger Delta Development Commission have been addressed. The militant group, in a statement on Saturday, had announced the launch of Operation Humble, a new mission to resume attacks in the oil-rich region.
Well, for more on this story, let's now bring in Frank Tietie, who is a legal practitioner. Frank, thank you so much for being here with us tonight on the program.
Thank
you. Of
course,
let's start with this statement by the president today, really addressing some of the threats by those groups in the Niger Delta region. They're saying this is coming less than 48 hours after the president met with some leaders of the region. That it's curious that this threat is coming after. What do you make of it?
Well, I think the Niger Delta Avengers may have considered the responses by government so far, and particularly the latest one, as simply being cosmetic, and they felt that the government seemed to have been very much responsive to when they applied their earlier tactic, which they had started in 2016. Sadly, for people like us who believe that government should have been a bit more responsive, given the ceasefire, the unilateral ceasefire by the Niger Delta Avengers in the last 4 years, something significant should have been done in Niger Delta. Nobody endorses violence and this means of negotiating with government, but it's like a catch-22 situation for some of us who are sympathetic to the situation. A situation where it seems as if it's the devil's alternative. Here you are, the people are suffering in the Niger Delta. There's a degraded, despoiled environment, serious oppressive tendencies going on the part of the federal government against the people. And then it can't be too much of a solution. And I don't think it's a solution to be that embraced so quickly when eventually you start blowing oil pipelines again and then further degrading the environment. That may not be the ready solution. The place is already militarized as we speak, and so when the Niger Delta Avengers begin to make good of the threat because they've done it before, you will see an increased military presence. Again, you will see gross human rights violations being on the increase. So it's a terrible situation.
I understand where you're coming from, but the fact that there was a meeting that was held between the presidency and the leadership of the Niger, some leaders of the Niger Delta region, and looking at the promises that were made in terms of restructuring, the president was saying the National Assembly have held regional meetings, and of course they will come up with whatever agreement from all the regions in the country, not just the Niger Delta, and of course eventually when it gets to his table, it would go straight and do what
the perception of the people from the Niger Delta is that they don't believe in a National Assembly that is unequally skewed against them. Nothing good will come out from the National Assembly in their perception for more than 20 years.
Why so?
Oh yes, a good example is the Petroleum Industry Bill. For more than 20 years, there's been dilly-dallying over it, politicking over it, something that will improve the oil industry and give the community rights, oil rights to the communities that are in the Niger Delta. For 20 years, the successive governments have not addressed it. So the people of Niger Delta don't believe in a National Assembly, this particular National Assembly. And then don't forget, very important, you're dealing with a Niger Delta that has over 60 ethnic nationalities, and you mentioned predominantly one ethnic nationality, the Ijaws, and you had a meeting with them. In fact, the degradations, the sense of oppression, the sense of deprivation, it goes deeper than these cosmetic political meetings that you have. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, I don't like this connection between this threat of violence by Niger Delta Avengers with the true quest to have justice for the Niger Delta people. The Nigerian state has never been interested. I'm not talking particularly with President Buhari's administration. After all, his former Minister of Environment, where they did so well, did so much to ensure that environmental issues in Niger Delta are addressed. But you see, How long? People live in Abuja here, we drive the streets, we see how much oil wealth has funded this country, and you really need to see how bad things are across the Niger Delta. I just came back from Port Harcourt yesterday. You can't just find blue skies across the Niger Delta anymore. Soot has taken over all the clouds. I mean, the people are suffering, dying, and then gas flaring and all of that, and then you speak grammar. So,
Frank, there isn't any doubt about the environmental degradation in the Niger Delta. I mean, where you have oil exploration and exploitation, one should expect it. But the cleanup response, the president said, look, the various ministry and departments and agencies are addressing it. You have the UNEP report, which is addressing the Ogoni cleanup. Mr. President has said, look, I concede to restructuring, but it will be done through the National Assembly with the constitutional review. Isn't the government responded copiously to the demands of Niger Delta leaders and the Joint National Congress enough?
I don't think so. In my mind, I don't think so. And also in my mind, I do not think in the situation where we are heading now, where all installations will be blown up and then there will be increased military activity in the Niger Delta, again, is a solution. I think that if a government, if a state, I wouldn't really refer to the President Buhari's administration alone. If a state, if the Nigerian state means business, if it has 70% of its oil revenues coming from a region, and the region is that degraded, it doesn't require any of these, any of these protocols or these legislative processes of going through the National Assembly, when we have all seen how powerful executive orders can be in our country with regards to pulling out funds, emergency funds from where it's necessary to be pulled from.
Some would argue that
the Niger Delta people,
the Niger Delta Ministry and even the NDDC, these were created really to help the people of that region.
And
so funding has actually gone into those
NDDC that has foisted a reign of corruption in the region. We have 20 years of uncompleted projects. How many projects can you mention that the NDDC has completed?
Now you see
what happens.
You've had people from the Niger Delta head the NDDC,
and only to set them against themselves, and then they start fighting against themselves, and then you have their own people, squandering their own money, and then you have the anti-corruption agencies in Abuja who don't do anything, and then you have some of them forgiven all because they move from one political party to the other, and you have all their sins forgiven, no matter how many contracts the contract funds they stole. I mean, you see, the Nigerian state and then the Nigerian politics has been against the people of Niger Delta. And I can tell you how easy it is where a government and a state is committed to to justice for the people. It's very easy. The president can do it, but there's this prevarication, this idea that, who are they? You see the recent provocations that have even come out, and I think let us not begin to localize it to the meeting that the president had 2 days ago. Imagine statements coming that oil wells, oil revenue, oil exploration were funded with groundnut money. What kind of, insane statement that permit me to say? When you know that the Shell, the ASI spent nearly $20 million in exploration for oil, right from 1920s, 1930s, until it discovered oil in 1956. Where did groundnut money come from? And then when you say these things, and then you look at the way they treat Bayelsa, a small state with just 8 local governments, and then when it comes to sharing, the national wealth, which comes from Bayelsa state, it is given some paltry sum, and then all the monies go to the federal government, and common security that the federal government is supposed to provide for the people of Niger Delta, they don't have it.
Well,
I mean, you can't just travel. You can't travel the streets.
The insecurity is not synonymous to the Niger Delta.
Should it be with all of the monies that come from should Port Harcourt have a coffee or 7 p.m. So embarrassing. So the supposed garden city, an international city supposedly, which is in squalor as far as I'm concerned, and then you find that the people across Ugeli, Warri, and Sapele, they can't travel in the night in the place that is supposed to provide, that supplies all the monies to Nigeria. For goodness sake, the government has failed the people. And then, why should it not be that the alternative should be Niger Delta Avengers?
Barrister Tietie, so what is the way forward, especially looking at these threats and even promises from the government? What is the middle ground for us to move forward?
The Niger Delta people, I can tell you for certain. I just came back from Port Harcourt yesterday.
In 30
they don't
seconds.
believe in the promises of the president. They don't.
So what should be done right now to
the Niger
address
Delta people, I can
issues?
tell you for free, as a form of information, is that they are taking their destinies in their hands. They are thinking of how to begin to put pressure on the international community to see to their plight, and hoping that the international community can put pressure on this government, on the Nigerian state, to see to it that the degradation, the oppression, the state of deprivation of the people of the Niger Delta must stop. And then it is in the interest of the Nigerian state that the people of the Niger Delta are taken care of, that justice and equity is applied with regards to the oil resources. What they're doing with the petroleum industry bill is unfair.
Thank you very much, Barrister Frank.